Allah Azza wa Jal in this passage gives us people a special title. And that title is وَعِبَادُ الرَّحْمَنِ, the slaves of the incredibly merciful, the incredibly loving. Believers can be called the slaves of Allah. The believers can be called simply the believers. الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. We can be called the Muslims. We have many titles. And of all of those titles, a special, unique title that Allah has chosen in this surah is Ibadur Rahman. And that's an indication of something. First and foremost, from a grammatical point of view, Ibadur Rahman is what they call in Arabic an idafa. What that simply means is two words that are bonded with each other. Grammatically, two words that are fused with each other. And grammatically, you say even that nothing comes between the mudaf and its mudaf ilayh. They're inseparable. And using that kind of structure in and of itself, because you could say ibadun lir-Rahman also, slaves to Ar-Rahman. But the fact that those two words have been fused together itself, some commentators were led to be inspired by the fact that this is describing a very close relationship with certain people and Allah. And the names of Allah, of course, each of them has a certain connotation. It brings about certain emotions for any one of us. He could have said Ibadullah, the slaves of Allah. But he chose in his wisdom to say Ibad Ar-Rahman. And so the relationship that is being described between us and Allah in this ayah is one of love, care, and mercy. We have been brought into the folds of Allah's love, care, and mercy. And as the ayat go, there are two distinct ways of looking at what's been said. One way of looking at it, there are going to be certain qualities of people. Who are these special people that Allah calls Ibadur Rahman? And one way of looking at it is, well, here's a list of these qualities, and until you have all of them, you have failed. That's one way of looking at it, isn't it? And so, and for many of us, we're just going to look at the first one and say, okay, well, I already disqualified. But another very clear way of looking at it, which is extremely plausible in the Arabic of these ayat, is that each one of these are a separate group of people. Each one of them is a separate group of people. What they have in common is that they're all believers. But the thing about it is, and this is the point that I want to give you in my introduction, we're not all the same. Some of you, like I met a woman this afternoon after Jumu'ah, she came up to me and said, I make tahajjud 3 hours every day. Is that okay? That's literally what she asked me, is that okay? And I said, you should get some kind of award, because tahajjud for 5 minutes is impossible for people. They haven't got, people getting up for Fajr on time is incredibly hard sometimes. And this woman is doing 3 hours, and I said, what makes you do that? And she says, well, what am I going to do, watch TV? I'd rather talk to Allah. That's what she says to me. And I was honored that she came to ask me. I should be, seeking her advice for people that are that close to Allah Azza wa Jal. What I'm trying to get at is, we're not all the same. I can't do what she does. I'll be honest with you. I'm not capable of doing what that woman does. And I admire the ability Allah has given her. May Allah continue to give her istiqamah and answer her prayers. But there are other people who are just amazing at helping others. Their skill, their gift is to be able to help somebody else. There are yet other people who just have one effect. When they're around people, they feel better. That's their gift. You just go to them, even if they don't say a word, you're just hanging around them and you feel like there's a calm in you. There's a peace in you. Allah has given all of us different gifts. This passage, one of the ways that I personally find that far more convincing, is highlighting different things about different believers. So there's a group of believers that has one special quality. Another group of believers has another special quality. That's what makes them special. And as we go through these ayat, you might find, well, I don't fit in the first one. I hope I make it into at least one category here. And inshallah ta'ala, as you will see, you will. You may even make it into more than one category, and that qualifies you to be Ibadur Rahman. May Allah include all of us among His Ibadur Rahman. So the first of them, it's fascinating. You would think, if Allah is talking about that are the closest to Him, that He loves the most, perhaps you should begin with those that pray the most to Him, that worship Him the most, that are most diligent in their spirituality towards Allah. Where does Allah begin? He says, الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا. The special merciful, or the slaves of the especially merciful, these special people are ones who walk on the earth with humility. الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا. Before we go any further, we need to understand what that means. It does not mean that when you walk on the street, you walk half in ruku, or like your shoulders are drooping down and you're, I'm being humble. That's not humility. You walk upright. Humility means that you don't treat people like they're less than you. You don't talk down to people. And the idea of fil ard is actually wherever you go, whether you're at home, whether you're at work, whether you're at school, whether you're dealing with your employees or you're dealing with your employer, whether you're dealing with children or you're dealing with elders, whether it's your parents, whether it's somebody else, whether it's Muslims or non-Muslims, when you deal with people, there's a certain humility in how you deal with them. You don't make anybody feel worthless. With your words, with the way you look at them, with the way you carry yourself. This is al-mashi ala al-ardi hawnan, walking on the earth with humility, in a humble fashion. You see, the Quran will highlight different kinds of arrogance. Now, everybody here knows arrogance is a disease of the heart. It's inside the heart, yes? But then, when there's a disease inside, like a virus is inside, there are symptoms on the outside. There's high temperature, there's sweating, there's all this kind of stuff. The Quran will highlight what are some symptoms of arrogance. Allah will describe, for instance, the way people stare at someone. Just the way they look at him. They will describe how the Quran will say that there are people who stare at the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. إِيَّكَادُ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا لَيُزْلِقُونَكَ بِأَبْصَارِهِم. They stare at you so hard, you might almost slip and fall by the way they're looking at you. That's how hard they stare at you. In other words, they didn't say anything, they didn't do anything. Their arrogance was where? Just on their face, just in their eyes. So for a lot of young people especially, this is an advice to you. Your parents are yelling at you about something fair, unfair, doesn't even matter. And you're sitting there listening, and your blood is boiling, and you want to yell back, but you just stare at them with this ugly look. This ugly look you give them. And your mother says, "Why are you looking at me like that?" And you say, "Well, I didn't say anything." You don't get an award because you didn't say anything. Because the arrogance wasn't just in your words. Congratulations, you didn't say anything. That's good. Because that would have been far worse. But there's pride and anger and a lack of humility even in our face. Even in the way, ثُمَّ نَظَرْ ثُمَّ عَبَسَ وَبَصَرْ ثُمَّ أَدْبَرَ وَاسْتَكْبَرْ. Just the way you stare at someone, just the way you frown, just the way you roll your eyes. As a matter of fact, sometimes it's the way you look at someone, sometimes it's the way you don't look at someone. Somebody said salam to you, you didn't even look at them. You just looked the other way, like you ignored it. Or you said wa alaikum assalam, especially, you said wa alaikum assalam because you feel guilty, but you said it in an especially low voice to make sure they don't hear it and they feel like you didn't respond. So it's like, Allah knows I said it, but I don't want them to have the satisfaction of knowing that I responded to their salam. So when they come and say, "Hey, I said salam, you didn't respond," I did say it. That's some special kind of lack of hawn. الَّذِينَ يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا. Humility towards people, mercy towards children, mercy towards elders, mercy towards people that are not worthy of it. They're not worthy of it. And this doesn't mean, by the way, at the same time, this does not mean you let people walk all over you. There are situations in our families, among your friends, in your circles, of people that are very abusive. It happens. There are people in your family, maybe sometimes your parents even, that say very hurtful things. That say very unfair things. And you have to hear it all the time, over and over and over again. There are women in our audience that I can't see. They're somewhere in this zip code or postcode. But wherever they are, maybe they have to hear things from their in-laws or their siblings or somebody else. And they have to hear it all the time and it boils their blood. What do you do then? Well, you still have to retain your humility. What you have to learn to do is, one, stay out of those situations. If you know you're going to lose your cool, walk away. I can't be part of this conversation right now. I'm sorry, I'm just going to go take a walk. Just get away from it before you explode. This is, first and foremost, يَمْشُونَ عَلَى الْأَرْضِ هَوْنًا.